The stock market is crashing, and in 2025, the stock market is flashing red, and Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway is making its biggest moves in years. We've seen a cash pile of about $325 billion at Berkshire. Are they preparing for a crash, and how do we prepare and take advantage of this market crash? Global stock markets extended their recent rout on Friday, with the S&P 500 companies wiping out $5 trillion in stock market value since US President Donald Trump unveiled sweeping tariffs on Wednesday, while investors fled to the safety of government bonds. Here's what Warren Buffett wants you to do in order to survive and take advantage of this market crash.
I know what markets are going to do over a long period of time. They're going to go up. But in terms of what's going to happen in a day or a week or a month or a year even, I never felt that I knew it, and I've never felt it was important. I will say that in 10 or 20 or 30 years, I think stocks will be a lot higher than they are now.
You know, I know you look at things like that, but I also know that you look at stocks and try to decide if they're fairly valued, if they're overvalued, if they're looking cheap at this point. And we have been waiting for a correction for an awfully long time. That's finally come. Do stocks look cheaper to you, just based on where we've come?
Well, anytime stocks go down, as far as I'm concerned, I like it because I'm a net buyer of stocks. I've been buying stocks ever since I was 11 years old. So when stocks go down, it's good news. Just like when hamburgers go down, it's good news, or Coca-Cola goes down, it's good news in terms of anything I buy. But you know, stocks are going to go down. You could probably look it up as to what percent of the days, since I was born, they've gone down, and maybe it'd be 30% or something like that. And you can't predict what stocks will do, but in the short run. But you can predict that American business will do well over time. And just take the 20th century. Stocks went from 66, the Dow average, 66 to 11,497, and you were getting 3 times as much in dividends as the whole average was selling for at the start. And you had 2 world wars, and you had a Great Depression, flu epidemics, all kinds of things. American business will do fine over time, and if you own a piece of it, and if you don't beat yourself, the only person that can cause you to get a bad result in stocks is yourself.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the biggest problem, is trying to fight yourself in some of these situations.
Yeah.
Have you been buying more stocks lately just because prices have come down? Have you upped your percentages and other things just
We're
because?
almost always a buyer of stocks. So we have bought more stocks since the end of the year. But we earned 17 and a fraction billion last year, and we had our float go up $4 billion, which is additional money available. And so we're almost always a buyer of stocks, and we're a more aggressive buyer when they're going down. I mean, I feel much better when they're going down, but it's hard to think of very many months when we haven't been a net buyer of stocks.
Warren, let's talk about some of the things that really resonated with people, and maybe start where you began the annual meeting this year, and that was talking to your investors and telling them a little bit about investing, some tips and lessons along the way. You kind of used it as a teaching experience at the top.
Yeah, normally I don't do that. I mean, in fact, I can't remember when I did it. We just go right into questions and answers, but I really thought that maybe we were giving a little bit the wrong lesson because all the questions would naturally tend toward current events. And so this time I went back actually to 1942 when I bought my first stock as an illustration of all the things that have happened since 1942. We've had 14 presidents, 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats. We've had world wars. We had 9/11. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have all kinds of things. The best single thing you could have done on March 11th, 1942, when I bought my first stock, was just buy an index fund and never look at a headline, never think about stocks anymore. Just like you would do if you bought a farm. You just buy the farm and let the tenant farmer run it for you. And I pointed out that if you'd put $10,000 in an index fund that reinvested dividends, and I paused for a moment to let the audience try and guess how much it'd amount to, and it would come to $51 million now. And the only thing you had to really believe in then is that America would win the war, and that America would progress as it has ever since 1776, and that American business, if America moved forward, American business would move forward. You didn't have to worry about what stock to buy. You didn't have to worry what day to get in and out. You didn't know the Federal Reserve would exist, whatever it might be. And America works.